Welcome to Soul Care in Real Life. We're hoping that this space will be a space where we can have thoughtful and grounded conversations about faith, about work, about spirituality, leaderships, our relationships, talk about doubt, talk about hope, and it's going to be hosted by me. I am Brian Sturtz, and I'm a board-certified chaplain. Spent time in the trauma room. I've spent time in pediatrics. I have so I like to explore spiritual depth and faith and how those things kind of connect in our complex realities. So soul care in real life isn't about removing spirituality to somewhere over there, but instead exploring just what it is to have faith, to have spirituality in our hospital rooms, in our meeting places at work, around our kitchen tables. So that's what soul care in real life, the heart of it, is going to be about. It's just going to be about offering something that's not hurried, but instead something that is steady, a space to sort of breathe things that matters most. And so we're going to be welcoming just to explore, what does it mean to have faith and spirituality in real life? What does it look like to take care of our souls in the midst of the complex realities that we face? So, welcome to Soul Care. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Soul Care in Real Life. And today we have with us Dr. James Kimmel. He is the Assistant Clinical Professor of Psychiatry at the Yale School of Medicine. He's also an author of The Science of Revenge, Understanding the World's Deadliest Addiction and How to Overcome It. And he looks at the issue not just as like maybe a moral sort of issue, but he describes it more in what's going on with us psychologically, what's going on with us in the neurological sense of how revenge affects not just our bodies, but our communities, our world. And so, Doctor, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you joining in.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Brian. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Well, let's just start off with this. Maybe revenge might not always be on somebody's forefront of our minds, but we've certainly experienced it on some level in our lives. Like, what kind of is revenge, and maybe like how is it addictive? Like, what's going on with this revenge?
Yeah, sure. As a matter of fact, most people much of the time are experiencing the desire to hurt the people who hurt them in some way. And that's really what revenge means. It's the idea of having this urge or desire to hurt somebody because you yourself feel like you've been mistreated, treated unjustly, maybe disrespected, shamed, humiliated, or something even more severe, a physical assault or worse. So that desire for revenge, that's prevalent in all cultures and societies around the world, pretty much since the beginning of recorded history. And if you ask a survey of a bunch of people at any specific point in time, have you had any revenge desires recently? More than 90% of the people will say, yes, they have had revenge desires. So it's very common.
Yeah. When I think about revenge and the way you're describing it, what I think of is like the Godfather movie, where it's this constant cycle of, this family's getting back at this family, getting back at this family, and the more they do that, it just causes more and more chaos, more and more hurt, more and more pain. Or I think of other movies where there's always this character who maybe they had a nefarious past, but they're living this peaceful life, and then something bad happens, and then they want to go and just wipe out everybody that ever harmed them ever. And I think on some level we can all relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's throughout. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, this concept of revenge plots in entertainment is very pervasive all the way from The Lion King, which is a really heavy revenge plot movie, up through superhero movies and old books and new books going all the way back to the Odyssey. And the Bible is, of course, especially the Old Testament, is just filled with revenge scenarios galore. So it's a really common experience in our literature, world literature, and in our entertainments today. And the most prevalent form of it now today is probably on social media platforms where people are experiencing their own. First of all, they're airing their own grievances in real time at light speed and pumping them into millions of people at once. And then we all experience the same grievance at the same time and the same revenge desires, which is to say, again, the desire to hurt or retaliate or get back at the person who has offended or wronged us.
Oh, yeah. And and also in our culture, we talk a lot about addiction. We talk a lot about people maybe addicted to pain medication or addicted to buying too much stuff off of Amazon or something like that. But you talk about addiction, or you talk about revenge as an addiction. How does revenge become something that's addictive in our lives?
Sure. Yeah, that comes, the strongest evidence for that comes from a growing set of neuroscience studies, brain imaging, brain scan studies that began around 20 years ago. And what happened is that neuroscientists around the world began to put people inside of brain scanners, give them a grievance, which is, I want to define grievance. That's a real or imagined perception that you've been mistreated, treated unjustly, or victimized. So we all experience grievances throughout our days. The world is just filled with reasons to feel that you're, been dealt with dirty or unfairly in some respect. And so if you put somebody inside a brain scanner and give them a grievance and an opportunity to retaliate, the neuroscientists have found over and over again that what this does is the first thing that happens is the grievance activates the pain network inside your brain. That's called the anterior insula. So, these experiences of disrespect, shame, humiliation, betrayal, these actually manifest inside the brain as physical pain in the pain network. And when that type of pain occurs, the neuroscience studies and the brain scans show that the two primary areas of the brain that are this part of the circuitry for pleasure, reward, and addiction, and that's to say the nucleus accumbens and the dorsal striatum, these two areas of the brain begin to activate, and it appears as though there's a dopamine surge in that circuitry, just the same way it is for drug use and alcoholism or gambling or any of the other addictions that you can think of. And so you can start to see very clearly in brain scans that your brain on revenge looks like your brain on drugs.
Wow, that is very interesting. Yeah, and I could see, without knowing that, but you could kind of see, like, just in my life, feeling like I'm mistreated. The more that I think about mistreating that other person, it does kind of give you a little bit of you think you're on the little bit maybe of the moral high ground, or you get a little rush out of like, like you hurt me, I'm gonna hurt you now too.
Mm-hmm.
I forget who said it, but revenge is one of those things where you just never know if you've ever done enough. Like it's always more, always more,
always more, right?
More. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And you're exactly right. That's the experience. And the reason that experience happens is that, so the brain, in response to pain, when it has the pain of the grievance, the brain is out of balance. It has too much pain. So it wants to cover that pain up and rebalance itself with a dopamine hit, which is to say pleasure. So the brain is, trying to achieve balance between pain and pleasure. Grievance increases the pain. Now the brain is seeking pleasure. So really, when we go out and seek revenge or seek to hurt somebody who hurt us, we're doing it as a form of self-medication to make ourselves feel better in response to the pain of what just happened to us, the insult or the betrayal or the humiliation. And the last part of your brain that's really involved in a big way is the prefrontal cortex. That's the part of your brain that's the executive function and self-control circuitry that's there to stop you from doing things that would hurt yourself or others, so things with negative consequences. And if that area of the brain is inhibited, which it often is with revenge seeking, or it's been hijacked or isn't available for any reason, then your desire for revenge might go from a craving or a want inside the brain into real action in real life with real consequences, negative consequences to you and the target of your revenge seeking.
So what got you into the study of revenge? I mean, it's not necessarily like, I don't know, where you were sitting around one day and was like, you know what? This revenge thing, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. What was it for you that got you into like the study of this, trying to figure this out for yourself?
Sure. There's a long story to that, but the short version is that I had an intense revenge experience when I was when I was a kid. I was raised on a farm in central Pennsylvania, and I experienced a lot of bullying, which culminated one night in the bullies coming to my house and shooting and killing my dog, which I discovered the next morning. A couple weeks later, they came back to the house when my parents weren't there and blew up our mailbox, like actually detonated it. And when that went off, that was sort of what that went off in my mind, as I'd been putting up with this bullying and taunting and harassment and getting pushed around, knocked around, shamed and humiliated for years. I hadn't retaliated up to that point, but they had now gone too far. And so I grabbed it. We had plenty of guns in our house, living in the country. My dad had a loaded revolver in a nightstand. My parents weren't at home. I grabbed the gun and I chased these guys down in the middle of the night, cornered them by one of their barns, and came within seconds of shooting several of them at once. I had the complete element of surprise. But at the last second, thank heavens, I sort of had this insight that if I went through with this, I'd have to live with a whole new identity of who I was for the rest of my life. And it was an identity as a killer that I could not accept. I never imagined doing that or wanting to be that kind of person. So it was really clear that I was overtaken by this super powerful desire. And I was saved at the last second. Kind of that, what I was explaining, that prefrontal cortex inside my head saved me, stopped me, and I left. But I wasn't done with revenge by any means. I wanted it. I just didn't want to pay the high price that I would have to pay if I did it illegally. And I came upon the idea that I could go into the professional legalized revenge business by becoming a lawyer. And that's what lawyers do. We have a license to go out and get revenge on behalf of our clients and sometimes ourselves. And so, I pursued that aggressively, and I spent 20 years of my life as a lawyer. And the more I did it, the more I started to feel like I was becoming hooked on these small little hits of revenge that I was getting, and that my own clients and lawyers opposite me, on the other side of a case, were also experiencing this, it seemed to me. And I began to really, it started to affect my personal life. I was becoming more vengeful with my wife and kids, with with people around me, neighbors, relatives. And I really felt like I was descending into a very, very, very dark place. And that's when I got the idea, or I came up with the theory that maybe revenge is addictive. And right at about the time I was looking into that, really studying the world's religions for their teachings on revenge seeking versus forgiveness, which scriptures of all religions support both. So it's basically a wild west out there, and you can find a scripture to do whatever you want. Unfortunately, even though there's clear teachings against it, but there are also other clear teachings that say go for it. But at about the same time I was doing that work, that first brain imaging study came out that suggested that yes, there is actual neurobiological, physical evidence that shows that this desire for revenge, which is cued by a grievance, that can become a pleasurable event that operates the same circuitry that's active for addiction. And that's what sent me on a new career path for 20 years of researching this question and then finally writing this book, The Science of Revenge.
Wow. That's quite the story. I've never experienced that level of bullying, the killing of an animal, blowing, up a mailbox. For myself, I did know a little bit of that, being ostracized a little bit, like in school or that kind of thing. But I can definitely identify with the fact that, like, you've mistreated me and I'm going to get something back. I mean, and you've gone to the point where I'm not just going to get you back. I mean, I might just take your life, like, because of what you've done. And I think you pointed out a good point, like, maybe we don't consider, it seems like, in our own lives, just how much maybe revenge is a part of our lives, and the mental things that it does to us, the things it does to us spiritually. So how do you see revenge affecting, maybe somebody is thinking, like, well, just how does revenge affect us anyway? Like, how does it affect maybe, like, and you've alluded to it a little bit, but like our relationships, like maybe like immediately around us, but then also like, that has reverberations throughout like communities or even our nation. So how do you see revenge playing out maybe in our relationships, in our communities, maybe even in the nation, the world at large? Like, how do you see that playing out?
Yeah, in so many ways. So by definition, revenge has negative consequences. I mean, the intent of somebody who's been wronged and wants to now retaliate in some way or get back at that person. The intent of that is to inflict pain upon the person who you believe inflicted pain on you. Or it turns out with revenge seeking, it also includes their proxies, which is to say that we often kind of unwittingly will seek revenge not against the actual person who wronged us, but somebody else who's maybe a little bit of a safer target, more easily available, less of a threat to us. So for example, a classic example is you have a bad day at work maybe, and you're mistreated by your boss, you feel, or a coworker, but you can't really retaliate at work without risking your job. So you go home maybe and you pick an unfair fight with your partner, or in the classic sense, you kick the dog or even punch the wall. But what that means really is that you're getting this revenge gratification by kicking your own dog maybe. Some psychologists will say that's called displaced revenge. And I don't really like that phrase because it suggests that there's a proper place for revenge, and there really isn't. It's usually comes with negative consequences no matter what. So what are these negative consequences that we get when we exact revenge on somebody, even if it's nonviolent revenge, right? So maybe it's some little act of sabotage, or you try to sabotage somebody's relationship, or you try to sabotage them at work, or maybe you come back with an insult, and it becomes insult for insult. Or it's a mean tweet, or it's canceling, or it's social isolation where, you're going to no longer interact with somebody or try and isolate them from the group. So there's lots and lots of nonviolent ways to kind of try and hurt the people who hurt us or their proxies. But in all of those instances, even when it looks like, what you're doing, wouldn't, right away have a negative feedback loop, it almost always does. Studies have shown that when you exact even that kind of revenge, you usually feel worse, not better. After you get revenge, you usually feel angrier. Some people feel some guilt. Some people will feel depressed. They'll feel anxiety. They know that if they retaliate, they're giving another person a grievance inside their head and it's stimulating that other person to now want to target them. So you get these revenge cycles and revenge loops that can be both physical and non-physical types of revenge seeking. So imagine now, that plays out in families and houses, almost every house, every day, around the world. There are acts of retaliation that are happening between siblings, between children and parents, between spouses, right? And then you expand beyond there to the workplace, schools where kids, are retaliating against each other because their feelings are hurt. Somebody's been a perpetrator of something that's wronged them or insulted them. You go beyond the school and the workplace to the community level, and now up to the national level. And that's what we were talking about a little bit earlier with social networking, which is used now. And the entire algorithm is built on the idea of getting people to essentially get hooked on, retaliatory tweeting. First I feel wounded by somebody said something, maybe it's a political thing, it's a left-right thing. And I want to say revenge is a human problem. It's not a liberal or a conservative problem. It is a genuine human problem. But when you amp it up to the scale of population level, the whole country or the whole world, and be able to communicate all of those grievances endlessly, 24/7, almost for free on your cell phone, you can see that there's a huge amount of danger, pandemic level type of danger with revenge seeking that's being propagated on social media platforms that not only allow you to spread your grievance, but you can use the social media platform to retaliate, both in the virtual world with maybe mean tweets or canceling and that sort of thing, but also in the real world, because sometimes it happens that people use the social media platform to plan, plot, scheme, and actually try to carry out revenge acts in the real world. So it's quite a dangerous time right now. And we see in that last week, there were those cases, at least the one case where Facebook and Google were found liable for creating a negligent, addictive platform. And the addiction that was found there was just using social media in a toxic way. But the next level ultimately will be revenge addiction, because those platforms are really built to make that happen. And it is so dangerous, and it harms a lot of people every day.
Yeah, and I would imagine it also is malforming our souls. I mean, it's shaping us in a way where we're viewing all people out there not as fellow humans, but as fellow people that I need to exact some sort of revenge on or get ahead of, or those people are out there to get me and I got to get them before they get me. I can see how that would just shapes us in some ways that make it just mean and just jerks to so many people. And you're right. Like, I totally, when I was in school, there was no such thing as texting, and so whatever happened at school sort of stayed at school. But now with like kids now, like whatever happened at school follows you everywhere. Or like whatever happens at work now follows you everywhere. There doesn't seem to be a lot of spaces or places, or maybe even intentionality on our part to sort of tone the volume down on that stuff. You're right. The algorithms are built for the anger, the revenge, the keep it going. Let's keep this stirred up, and that really affects us. And I'm thinking about, we're coming up on Easter, and for myself, if there was anybody that wanted to get revenge, it would be Jesus. Hey, you're wrongly accusing me. Not only that, you're trying to murder me. You're
right.
I got taken to a kangaroo court, right? I didn't have anybody, offer up any sort of other evidence. You're just kind of accusing me of things. But yet he chooses in the end forgiveness. He chooses this other path of forgiveness. So how might forgiveness help us in this moment of this cycle of revenge that we're all sort of experiencing?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because there is a lot of reasons to feel really good now about forgiveness. So another group of neuroscience researchers have essentially created evidence, neuroscientific evidence, that supports the forgiveness teachings of Jesus Christ. And the way that happened is another group of researchers put people inside of the brain scanners, gave them a grievance, as I said earlier, which activates this anterior insula. But instead of only giving them an opportunity to retaliate, it also gave them an opportunity to forgive. And for those study participants who forgave, here's what happens inside the brain of people when they forgive. It is an amazing wonder drug type of experience, which is to say, the first thing that happens is forgiveness shuts down that anterior insula, the pain network. So unlike revenge, which gives you this quick, pleasurable dopamine type of high, with revenge, it actually stops pain. Revenge stops pain. You can see that physically inside of in these brain scans. So that happens right inside your brain. The second thing that forgiveness does is it turns off as well the pleasure and reward circuitry of addiction, that nucleus accumbens and dorsal striatum, that are, these dopamine-rich circuits that are going to motivate you, or motivate you to think about and ruminate on and obsess over revenge seeking and how can I get back at this person and how good would that feel, and then maybe going and doing it. With forgiveness, it shuts down that circuitry. And the third thing that forgiveness does is it activates that prefrontal cortex, that executive function and control circuitry. So you're getting essentially your right thinking, your smart brain comes back online, and it's able to evaluate cost-benefit analyses and determine, is it really going to benefit you to get revenge or not? And in most cases, most of the time, revenge is going to cost you as much or more than the pain that you've received. It's almost always a loss, and sometimes a huge loss. So forgiveness is giving us all these enormous benefits. When Jesus taught, was asked, how many times should I forgive? 7 times? Should I just do 7? And he said, not 7, 70 times 7. And that's just kind of an amazing, it's like a prescription for a wonder drug right there. He's like, here's a drug. It's available for you. You manufacture it inside your own head. It's free. You don't need a prescription. You don't need to go to a pharmacy. And it has immediate pain relieving benefits that you can experience right now. Take it as often as you can until the pain never comes back. That's a huge delivery, and it's a great time to talk about it here at Easter.
Oh yeah, yeah, and my fear is that I think for a lot of us when we think about forgiveness, we think about it in terms of weakness. We think about it not as a relief from pain, not even maybe even as a solution. I think the way I hear people sort of experience forgiveness is more like it's sort of the last resort. It's kind of like, well, I guess I don't know what else to do. I guess I just got to forgive him. And okay, and we think like we're losing. But yet when you look at Jesus' story, he didn't lose. He won in that sense. And then also from what you're suggesting, what the neuroscience is telling us, you're also winning as well. But
you are winning. So forgiveness has these benefits regardless of your spiritual orientation. So it doesn't matter if you're, Christian or a Jew or a Muslim. Not only that, it doesn't matter if you're an atheist. You get these neurological benefits that are hardwired and built into your brain. And they're delivered immediately in terms of pain relief and reduction in, revenge desires and revenge cravings that can hurt you. It truly is like a wonder drug, and it's a wonder drug for use. The type of forgiveness that activates this is called just simply decisional forgiveness, which is I'm going to decide inside myself. I'm not going to speak to the person who wronged me. I'm not going to offer them. I don't have to offer them any type of gift of it's okay. It's okay that you just slap me in the face, right? With, like Jesus say, turn the other cheek. You don't have to offer the person who wronged you any type of pardon or excuse, and you don't have to endorse what they've done. You're doing this internally inside yourself. It's a private decision to forgive and release your own pain. So it truly is an example of strength. And I think of Jesus on the cross, looking down at the people who have now just tortured him and are on the verge of killing him or executing him. He did not endorse what they did. He did not say that, yeah, it's good to torture people. You're all right. Keep doing it. This is fine. He said, he asked God to forgive them is all that he did. And in that sense, I believe that he likely relieved some of the intense pain that he was feeling in those moments, right? He had just been cut open with a sword, nailed to a cross, the humiliation and the mockery that he had to go through leading up to that. Forgiving would be the only true act of strength to relieve your pain in that horrific moment. And he was wise enough to do that. And he gave that gift to the rest of us and has taught it and said, you all ought to use it. And you really should. I mean, it just only offers benefits, not negatives.
Yeah. I appreciate you giving an example of like the simple decision that we can make in order to activate forgiveness. Because I think you're right. I think a lot of people sometimes when we think about forgiveness, we think about, well, I'm justifying what they did, or I'm saying that it's okay. Or even some people think, well, I just need to pick up the phone and tell so-and-so that I forgive you. Well, you don't have to start there with any of that. And it doesn't mean that what they did in remote sense is okay, but you can choose to stop the cycle and start to heal yourself.
Right. Yeah, you're healing your own self. Right. It's a human kind of a superpower, sort of a wonder drug experience that if we know it's there, and now that we have this neurological evidence, we do, and we ought to be using it more for our own benefit. I mean, really, forgiveness benefits you as the victim. You're the one who is getting the benefits of it. And the longer you deny, I know you mentioned, we often think of forgiveness as kind of this last resort, and it can be. I mean, but yours is the choice to suffer waiting. I mean, you can wait to forgive for years and be in pain for years, or you can forgive today and be out of pain today. Do you want to suffer? Don't forgive. Do you want it to stop? Forgive. I mean, it's really, do you want to have mercy on yourself or no? I mean, do you want to just continue to make yourself suffer or not? That's the question.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I really appreciate this conversation. I really, really do. I think that this is such a practical thing that everybody's experiencing, especially in sort of the cultural or societal moment that we're sort of having, especially in America and around the world at the moment, where it seems like we're in this huge cycle of getting everybody back. If you could sort of like maybe this as it seems to be like this is like a workplace, church, family sort of it's a public health issue. Let's just put it that way, right? Like this is like a public health kind of an issue. How do you think if what would be like one way, and you've talked about it like a little bit, but might that be one way that maybe a parent or maybe a leader at work or a coworker at work or you're working at the gas station, that's your job, how might a person sort of put some forgiveness and sort of recognize the revenge cycle that they're in and maybe use that today? What might that look like?
Great question. And there's a good and solid and easy, genuine, you'll feel it right away experience. And what I recommend people do is if you're dealing with a grievance, you've been wronged or mistreated in some way, you don't even have to forgive to experience this benefit. All you need to do is imagine what it would feel like if you forgave. So what I mean is, I've worked with a lot of people who, and for, are victims of some serious, assaults, just brutality of family members. And it's very difficult for them to even consider the possibility of the F word, the forgiveness word. And so for them, I say, I understand that. And I'm not asking you to forgive, but I am asking you to do something I know you can do right now. And that is imagine how you would feel if you did. So all you need to do there, close your eyes for a second and just imagine, what would it feel like if I decided to forgive this? And you will instantly experience, I've never met a person who doesn't instantly experience this sense of relief, this sense of this weight coming off their shoulders, this sense of I can breathe again, this just overall sense of peace that comes. And it's just imagining forgiving. You're not forgiven. You haven't talked to anybody. You haven't even decided inside yourself to forgive. You're just experiencing what it would feel like if you did. If that felt good to you, do it again. And if that one felt good to you, try it again. And all of a sudden, you will have instantly and very gently and easily and without any threat walked yourself straight into forgiveness and healing and relief of pain. You will have healed yourself. And then, as Jesus said, 70 times 7. You just do it as often as necessary when the pain comes back until the pain doesn't come back anymore. It's like taking an amazing form of Tylenol, right? The best form, right? The kind that ends pain. You don't have to pay for it. It's just right there. I mean, it just does it.
I really love that. I really appreciate that. And I think that's a beautiful place to sort of wrap up our time here today. I think that's a great thing to sit around today and to sort of imagine, hey, what would it look like to offer forgiveness to myself and just letting some of this pain go, and imagine as we're letting that pain go, how that's shaping our souls, how that's shaping our relationships. I think that's a wonderful thing. I thank you so much. You've given us so much to consider. I hope people go out and get the book. If they're able to follow your work, how would they follow your work? How would they do that?
Sure. You can go to jameskimmeljr.com. That's my website. On there, you're going to see a couple of extra things, not only information about the book, but there's a free online quiz that you can take, a 10-question quiz that can help see you understand your own relationship with revenge and whether you're at risk of revenge addiction. There's also a link to this Miracle Court app that I've created, which is another way to operationalize forgiveness that's more detailed. With the non-justice system Miracle Court that I've created and studied at Yale, it allows anyone who has a grievance or a victimization experience to put on trial the person who wronged them inside the courtroom of their own mind. Play all the roles yourself, but get to the point in the last step of the trial, after you've gone through being the victim and the defendant and the judge deciding guilt or innocence and handing down a sentence, and even the warden imagining punishing the person inside your head safely, kind of like methadone for a revenge addict. But in the last step, you are given the opportunity to do this, imagining the experience of forgiveness. You don't have to forgive, you just imagine what it would feel like. and you'll experience that relief. And you'll also have gotten these other benefits of going through the trial, like being heard and holding somebody to account. So for people who have really serious grievances and it's very difficult to forgive, you might want to check that out. The script for that, you can use it for yourself, is also in the book. So it's in the book, and then we have this free Miracle Court app. So James Kimmel Jr.
That sounds wonderful. I hope people take advantage of that. Okay, that sounds wonderful. And thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you. And I hope everybody has a good rest of the day.
You bet. Thank you, Brian.